Forward. Why we fail to start. You don't hate work. You hate starting. You don't lack dreams. You lack motion. And every morning, somewhere between the moment you open your eyes and the moment you reach for your phone, the war begins. It's quiet, invisible even. But it's the battle that defines your life. The battle between what you want to become and what you choose to remain. You tell yourself, I'll start later. Just a short break. Just one more scroll. Just one more video. But later slowly becomes tomorrow. And tomorrow becomes someday. Until someday becomes never. The truth is, laziness isn't just lying on the couch or avoiding tasks. It's the invisible weight that holds you back from your own potential. It's that quiet voice that says, not now, not yet. And somehow, that voice always wins. We often think laziness means not caring, but that's not true. You care deeply. You think about changing all the time. You just can't get yourself to move. That's because laziness is not a character flaw. It's a psychological shield. It protects you from discomfort, from uncertainty, from the fear of failure. Your brain isn't trying to sabotage you. It's trying to keep you safe. Safe inside the familiar, safe inside the routine, safe inside your comfort zone. But the problem is, comfort kills growth. And what feels safe today quietly becomes your prison tomorrow. There's a strange irony in laziness. It promises ease but gives you anxiety. It promises rest but gives you restlessness. It promises time but steals it from you. 1 second, one scroll, one excuse at a time. You don't wake up one day lost. You drift there slowly, distracted, comfortably unfulfilled. This book isn't about shaming you. It's about understanding you. Because until you understand why you're stuck, you'll never know how to move. You don't need more motivation videos. You need a mirror, one that reflects your hidden habits, fears, and patterns with honesty. This book is that mirror. Inside these chapters, you'll explore the real psychology behind laziness, how your brain resists effort, how your emotions manipulate your focus, and how your identity keeps you trapped in the cycle of, I'll do it later. You'll learn that success doesn't start with big leaps. It begins with small, consistent moments of courage, moments where you act before you feel ready, moments where you do the thing you least want to do, just because you promised yourself you would. And slowly, those moments become habits. Those habits become identity. And that identity, disciplined, awake, intentional, becomes your new way of living. There's a quote that says, "Discipline is remembering what you want." That's what this book is about. Not fighting laziness, but remembering your purpose so vividly that laziness no longer makes sense. Because one day, you'll look back and realize something profound. You were never lazy. You were only afraid. And the moment you faced that fear, the moment you took that first imperfect step, your life began to change. So before we go any further, take a deep breath. Look around you. This, right now, is your starting line. Let's begin. Introduction. The hidden cost of laziness. You wake up tired, even when you've slept enough. Your to-do list sits untouched. You scroll, you snack, you drift. And yet, at the end of the day, you feel strangely exhausted. It's not physical fatigue. It's something deeper. A heaviness that comes from knowing you could do more, but didn't. That's the real cost of laziness. Not the unfinished tasks, not the missed deadlines, but the slow erosion of self-respect. Every time you promise yourself, "I'll start tomorrow," and don't, you lose a little trust in your own word. And when that happens enough times, your brain stops believing in you. You tell yourself, "I'll wake up early," but you don't. You say, "I'll work out today," but you don't. You whisper, "I'll chase that dream someday," but someday never feels like today. And without realizing it, you start carrying quiet guilt, a guilt that grows heavier the longer you stay still. We often think the danger of laziness is falling behind others, but that's not true. The real danger is falling behind yourself, because deep down, you know who you could be. You've seen glimpses of that version, the one who's disciplined, focused, creative, unstoppable. You've felt what it's like to be in flow, to finish what you start, to feel proud of your effort. But that version of you fades each time you choose comfort over growth. And the more you delay, the more distance grows between who you are and who you're meant to become. That distance, that quiet, gnawing gap, is the pain most people live with every single day. The lie of "when I feel ready." We tell ourselves, "I'm just waiting for motivation." But motivation doesn't come first. Action does. Waiting to feel ready is like waiting for the sea to be still before you learn to swim. It will never happen. You start, not because you're ready, but because you're tired of being stuck. And in the act of starting, readiness is born. Motivation is a result, not a cause. It's the spark that follows the friction of doing. The mind's trap. Your mind is clever. It doesn't shout, "Be lazy." It whispers, "You deserve a break." It tells you, "It's fine. You'll do it later." It dresses avoidance in the disguise of self-care. But real self-care isn't indulgence. It's discipline. It's doing what your future self will thank you for, not what your tired self finds easiest. Every distraction, every "I'll just check my phone for a second," feels harmless. But each small surrender teaches your brain that comfort is the goal, not growth. And over time, your comfort zone becomes a cage you decorate, familiar, cozy, but confining. The emotional cost laziness doesn't just waste time, it eats identity. You start to question your worth. Maybe I'm just not disciplined. Maybe I'm not like those people who get things done. But that's not true. You are not lazy by nature. You're simply untrained in managing resistance, that invisible force that shows up whenever something matters. You don't need a new personality. You need a new process. Because every habit of procrastination can be unlearned, and every spark of discipline can be reignited. The hidden exchange. Each time you choose later, you trade something precious. You trade clarity for guilt, momentum for stagnation, confidence for self-doubt. And the cruelest part? You often don't even notice the trade until it's too late. You reach a point where doing nothing feels normal, where comfort feels safe, and where the idea of change feels like a mountain too high to climb. That's the silent decay of potential, the moment when you stop believing effort can change you. The wake-up call. But it doesn't have to stay that way. You can change the story, not someday, but today. Because laziness isn't permanent. It's just a habit. And habits are patterns your brain once learned, which means it can unlearn them too. You can teach your mind that discomfort isn't danger. You can rebuild trust with yourself, one small promise kept at a time. You can create an environment where focus feels natural and movement feels easier than delay. This book is about that process. Not perfection, not motivation, but transformation. Through these chapters, you'll uncover why your brain resists effort and how to trick it into starting. How to rewire your habits using small, strategic actions. How to create momentum even on low-energy days. How to rebuild confidence after years of broken promises. And most importantly, how to live with purpose again. Not as a dream, but as a daily practice. By the end of this journey, you won't be asking, "How do I stop being lazy?" anymore. You'll be asking something far more powerful. What kind of life can I build when I stop running from my potential? Because that's what this is all about. Not fighting laziness, but reclaiming the life that laziness has stolen from you. The life waiting just beyond the next small action. The life that begins the moment you decide to start. So take a deep breath, close the tab, silence the noise, and listen carefully, because your future self is already calling your name. Let's begin. Chapter 1. The Illusion of Later. You tell yourself it's just for today. You'll start tomorrow, when you feel better, when you're less tired, when life feels a little more together. But tomorrow rarely comes the way you imagine it. It always looks perfect in your mind. Clean desk, clear mind, full motivation. And when tomorrow becomes today, it looks exactly like yesterday. The same excuses, the same hesitation, the same quiet promise. I'll start later. And so begins the loop. The most dangerous loop in human behavior. The illusion of later. The beautiful lie. Later feels safe. It makes you feel responsible, even mature. You're not refusing the task. You're just postponing it. You convince yourself you're thinking it through, planning better, waiting for the right moment. But later is not a plan. It's a comfort blanket for guilt. It tells you that time is abundant, that you can afford to wait, that nothing bad happens when you delay. But that's the lie. Because every time you choose later, you're silently saying no to progress, no to growth, no to your future self. The real enemy isn't laziness. Most people think they're lazy because they lack discipline. But the truth is, they're overwhelmed by their own expectations. You don't avoid work because you hate it. You avoid it because you fear the weight of starting. Starting is uncomfortable. It demands energy, uncertainty, effort, vulnerability. So your mind looks for relief, and later becomes that relief. It whispers, "Not now. You're tired. You need to rest. You'll be better tomorrow." It feels logical, even kind, but it's not kindness. It's escape. The psychology of later. Your brain has one ancient mission: avoid pain, seek comfort. That's how it kept your ancestors alive. But in the modern world, that same instinct works against you. To your brain, effort feels like danger. It releases stress hormones, creating a subtle discomfort that your mind mistakes for a warning sign. So instead of pushing through, it says, "Let's do it later." The irony? The more you delay, the more anxiety you feel. The relief of avoidance lasts minutes. The regret of stagnation lasts days, sometimes years. You don't realize it, but every time you postpone a task, your brain learns a lesson. Avoidance feels good, and the next time, it's easier to delay. Soon, postponing becomes your reflex, not your decision. You're not lazy, you're conditioned. The emotional interest rate. Every unfinished task carries emotional debt. You don't just owe time, you owe peace. That email you didn't send? It lingers in your mind like background noise. That project you haven't started? It steals space from new ideas. That habit you promised to begin? It whispers in your conscience, draining quiet energy every day. Laziness is expensive. You pay for it with stress, guilt, and the slow decay of self-trust, and the interest grows daily. The weight of micro-betrayals. Every time you say, "I'll do it later," a small part of you knows you won't. You feel that tiny sting in your chest, that awareness that you're lying to yourself again. And over time, those small lies pile up. They form a quiet belief. I can't trust myself. That's the real damage of procrastination. Not lost time, but lost integrity. You stop believing your own promises. You stop setting goals because deep down, you expect to break them. That's when later wins. Not in a single moment, but in 1,000 small ones. Breaking the spell. To escape the illusion of later, you must stop treating later as an option. You must see it for what it is, a thief disguised as comfort. The moment you say, "I'll do it later," ask yourself, if not now, when? Not rhetorically, literally. If not this hour, which hour? If not today, which day? Force your brain to confront the vagueness of later, and it collapses. Later only lives in the fog. When you shine clarity on it, it disappears. Start small. Start now. The most powerful way to defeat later is not motivation, it's momentum. Don't promise yourself the whole project. Promise yourself 5 minutes. 5 minutes of writing, 5 minutes of exercise, 5 minutes of focus. Because once you begin, your brain shifts from avoidance mode to engagement mode. The resistance fades, the energy returns. Action creates clarity, clarity creates motivation, and motivation keeps you moving. It's not a miracle, it's biology. The paradox of starting. You don't wait to start because you're lazy. You wait because you think starting should feel good. But starting rarely feels good. It feels awkward, heavy, and uncomfortable. That's why it's sacred. Because every time you begin, despite resistance, you grow stronger. Every act of beginning, no matter how small, chips away at the old identity that says, "I'm lazy." You don't defeat laziness by fighting it. You outgrow it, one start at a time. Reflection, later, has stolen more dreams than failure ever did. And if you're honest, you already know that. You've seen opportunities pass, projects fade, potential gather dust. Not because you weren't capable, but because you were waiting for the perfect moment that never came. So stop waiting. There is no perfect moment. There is only this one, raw, imperfect, and fleeting. Your future doesn't begin tomorrow. It begins when you stop believing in later. Chapter 2. Comfort is the new cage. You don't notice it happening. No one does. It starts small. A missed workout, a snoozed alarm, a night spent scrolling instead of sleeping. At first, you tell yourself you deserve it. You've worked hard, you're tired, you need a little rest. But slowly, comfort becomes the default. And one day, you realize something terrifying. You're not resting anymore. You're stuck. The subtle trap comfort looks innocent. It wears the face of self-care, of relaxation, of taking it easy. It promises peace. But what it really gives you is pause. And if you stay in pause long enough, pause becomes paralysis. You stop challenging yourself. You stop trying new things. You stop feeling alive. Comfort is addictive because it mimics happiness. It gives temporary pleasure without lasting meaning. It's the emotional equivalent of junk food, sweet in the moment, but empty afterward. The brain's confusion. Your brain doesn't know the difference between safety and stagnation. To your ancient wiring, anything familiar feels safe, even if it's slowly killing your spirit. That's why we cling to routines that drain us, jobs that bore us, and habits that keep us numb, because they're predictable, and predictability feels like control. The unknown, on the other hand, triggers anxiety, even when it holds the life you actually want. You say you want freedom, success, growth, but your brain whispers, "Let's just stay here a little longer. It's cozy." That whisper is comfort, and it is the most seductive prison you'll ever live in. The hidden cost of easy. Every time you choose easy, you lose a little edge. Not enough to notice immediately, but enough to dull your hunger over time. A comfortable life might protect you from pain, but it also protects you from greatness, because growth only happens where comfort ends. Think about it. Every major transformation in your life, learning a skill, healing from heartbreak, chasing a dream, started with discomfort. It was awkward, messy, uncertain, but that discomfort was proof that you were expanding. Now imagine a life without that feeling. Smooth, predictable, effortless. It sounds ideal until you realize that no discomfort also means no growth. Comfort may keep you safe, but safety and fulfillment rarely live in the same place. The emotional dulling comfort doesn't just make you still, it makes you numb. The more you avoid challenges, the less you feel capable of facing them. Your confidence fades quietly, replaced by low-level anxiety you can't explain. You begin to overthink small things. You hesitate in moments that used to be automatic. You start living reactively, doing just enough to get by, never enough to feel proud. It's not that you lack ambition, it's that you've been tranquilized by ease. The myth of balance people say, you need balance. And yes, balance matters. But most people use balance as an excuse for mediocrity. Balance doesn't mean avoiding effort. It means respecting cycles. Push and rest, create and recover, move and pause. But when rest becomes the default, you're no longer balanced. You're drifting. True balance isn't about comfort. It's about rhythm, knowing when to move and when to breathe. You've been breathing long enough. It's time to move again. The discomfort principle. Discomfort is not your enemy. It's your compass. Whatever feels uncomfortable usually points to what you need most. The workout you resist, your body needs it. The conversation you avoid, your relationships need it. The project you fear, your potential needs it. Discomfort is the signal that says, here lies your growth. Ignore it, and you stagnate. Face it, and you evolve. Every successful person you admire has made peace with discomfort. They don't love it. They've just stopped running from it. They know that pain is the price of progress, and that fear is often a sign of direction, not danger. A truth to remember. Comfort will never give you what discomfort can promise. Comfort offers ease. Discomfort offers transformation. Comfort gives you pleasure. Discomfort gives you pride. Comfort keeps you where you are. Discomfort shows you who you can become. So the question isn't whether you should avoid comfort. It's whether you're willing to outgrow it. The first step out, breaking free from comfort, doesn't require a grand gesture. It starts with one small act of courage. Wake up 10 minutes earlier. Say no to the thing that drains you. Take one small action toward the thing that scares you. Each act is a declaration. I choose growth over ease. And the moment you make that choice, even once, something in you wakes up. You feel it in your chest, a quiet pride, a flicker of life. That's the feeling comfort stole from you. That's what you're taking back. Reflection. Comfort is not peace. It's the slow death of potential disguised as happiness. You were not born for comfort. You were born for capacity, to stretch, to evolve, to build, to create. So don't ask for an easy life. Ask for a life that challenges you enough to make you proud of who you become. Because when you finally step out of your comfort zone, you don't lose peace. You find purpose. Chapter 3. The myth of motivation. You keep waiting for it, that perfect spark, the moment when everything feels aligned, when you suddenly feel like it. But that moment rarely comes, and even when it does, it doesn't last. Motivation is not a loyal friend. It's a visitor, warm when it's here, gone when you need it most. The big lie. We've been told a lie since childhood. You need motivation to take action. But the truth is the opposite. You need action to feel motivated. Motivation doesn't come before movement. It follows it. It's like a fire. It doesn't light itself. You have to strike the first spark. Yet most people sit in the dark saying, "I'll move when I see the flame." They don't realize the flame is waiting for them to move. The psychology of motion. When you act, even in the smallest way, your brain releases dopamine. That chemical is not just the reward for success, it's the fuel for more action. The moment you take a single step, your mind says, "Oh, we're doing this now," and starts helping you. You feel a little surge of energy, a sense of progress. That's why it's so hard to start, but so easy to keep going once you've begun. Action creates momentum. Momentum creates motivation, and motivation keeps the cycle alive. The if-only trap. If only I were more motivated, I'd change. If only I felt inspired, I'd start. If only I had discipline, I'd succeed. Those thoughts feel true, but they're traps. They put responsibility on emotion instead of action. They make your progress dependent on something you can't control. You can't command motivation, but you can command movement. And the moment you move, even imperfectly, the illusion of laziness begins to fade. The waiting room. Look around. The world is full of people waiting. Waiting for the right time. Waiting for the right feeling. Waiting for the right plan. The waiting room is comfortable, quiet, familiar, safe. But here's the secret no one tells you. The waiting room has no doors. You don't leave it by waiting for the right feeling. You leave it by standing up and walking out, even when you don't feel ready. Because readiness is born in the doing, not the thinking. The truth about discipline. People think discipline is hard. It's not. What's hard is starting again and again because you keep waiting for motivation to come back. Discipline is freedom from waiting. It's choosing to act regardless of mood. The gym-goer who shows up tired. The writer who writes uninspired. The parent who keeps showing up for their child. They've stopped negotiating with their feelings. They don't ask, "Do I feel like it?" They ask, "Is it time?" Because when you remove emotion from the decision, action becomes automatic. The emotion of after, we often chase the feeling of before, the excitement, the rush, the I'm ready moment. But the real magic lives in the feeling of after. After you push through the resistance, after you do the thing you didn't want to do, after you prove to yourself that you could. That after feeling, pride, clarity, momentum, is the emotional reward that laziness steals. So stop chasing the rush of beginning. Start chasing the peace of finishing. The momentum rule. If motivation can't be trusted, what can? Momentum. Momentum is what happens when you act consistently, even when the action is small. One push-up becomes two. One sentence becomes a page. One honest day becomes a week of progress. Momentum compounds. It turns discipline into identity. It turns effort into ease. When you have momentum, you don't need motivation. You don't think about doing it. You just do. The myth of inspiration. We glorify inspiration, the lightning strike that changes everything. But lightning is unpredictable. You can't wait for inspiration. You have to create the storm. And you do that by showing up every day, especially when you don't feel like it. Because consistency invites inspiration. The muse doesn't visit dreamers, it visits workers. When you sit down and do the work, even badly, inspiration notices. And when it arrives, it finds you already moving. Start ugly. We resist starting because we want things to be perfect. But perfectionism is just procrastination wearing a mask. You don't need a flawless start. You need a real one. Start ugly. Start messy. Start uncertain. Because an ugly start still beats a beautiful intention. And once you start, you'll refine as you go. Always better than waiting for the perfect plan that never begins. Reflection. You don't need to feel inspired to act. You need to act to feel inspired. Motivation is not a gift. It's a consequence. It's what shows up when you show up. So stop waiting to feel ready. The world doesn't reward potential. It rewards movement. Move first. Think later. And let momentum become your motivation. Chapter 4. The War with Resistance. There's a voice inside you. You've heard it 1,000 times. It doesn't scream. It whispers. You can do it later. It's not the right time. You're too tired. One day off won't hurt. That voice sounds gentle, even reasonable. But it's not your friend. It's resistance. And resistance is the silent force that kills more dreams than failure ever could. The enemy within resistance isn't laziness. It's fear disguised as logic. It's the invisible tension that appears the moment you decide to do something meaningful. It doesn't show up when you're scrolling your phone or watching TV. It shows up when you sit down to work, to write, to change. The greater the task, the louder it gets. That's how you know it's important. If you've ever felt that sudden pull to walk away right when you're about to begin, that's resistance tightening its grip. The psychology of resistance. Your brain is wired to protect you from discomfort. It doesn't know the difference between physical danger and emotional challenge. So when you try to start something that demands effort, uncertainty, or vulnerability, your brain hits the panic button. It floods your mind with distractions, rationalizations, and fatigue. It's not that you're weak. You're simply at war with your own biology. The subtle tricks of resistance doesn't fight you head-on. It seduces you sideways. It tells you to check your messages real quick, to tidy your desk before you begin, to wait until you've had one more coffee. It's smart because it knows it doesn't have to stop you forever. It just has to stop you for now. Delay is its favorite weapon. Perfectionism is its armor. Doubt is its favorite disguise. The voice that sounds like you, the cruelest part of resistance, it sounds exactly like you. When it whispers, "You're not ready," it uses your voice. When it says, "You'll fail anyway," it borrows your logic. It knows your weaknesses, your fears, your memories, your insecurities, and it uses them against you. That's why it's so hard to fight. You think you're being rational, when in fact, you're being manipulated. The daily battle. You don't defeat resistance once. You fight it every single day, every morning when the alarm rings. There it is. Every time you open your laptop to start the real work, it's waiting. Every time you're about to do something that matters, it rises. But here's the truth. Resistance doesn't grow weaker when you avoid it. It grows weaker when you face it. Every time you act despite the voice, you chip away at its power. Every time you start before you're ready, it retreats just a little more. The law of small wins. You don't need to win the entire war today. You just need to win the next small battle. Write one paragraph. Do one workout. Make one phone call. That's how resistance loses. Not in grand victories, but in small, consistent defiance. Every act of discipline, no matter how tiny, sends a message. I'm in charge now. And slowly, resistance begins to fear you. The paradox of effort. The first few minutes of any task are always the hardest. Not because the task is difficult, but because resistance is strongest right before surrender. Once you start, the tension fades, the fear shrinks, momentum takes over. It's like pushing a heavy door, hardest at first, effortless once it moves. Your job isn't to make the whole journey easy. Your job is to survive the first push. Resistance's final trick. When resistance can't stop you, it'll try to make you stop yourself. It whispers, "You're not good enough." It compares you to others. It reminds you of every past failure. But the voice of resistance is never evidence. It's echo. An echo of every time you quit, every time you doubted yourself. You don't need to argue with it. You just need to move anyway. Because nothing silences resistance faster than action. The warrior mindset. You are not meant to feel fearless. You are meant to act despite fear. That's courage. And courage is the only antidote to resistance. When you wake up tomorrow and that familiar voice says, "Not today," smile. Because now you know. Its presence means you're standing on the edge of growth. You're about to do something that matters. That's why it's fighting so hard. So don't back down. Don't wait for the feeling to disappear. Walk through it. Every act of defiance builds a new identity. Not of a lazy person, but of a disciplined one. And one day, you'll realize that the war never really ends. You just get stronger. Reflection. Resistance is not the enemy of progress. It's the proof of it. The only people who never feel resistance are the ones who never try. So the next time that inner voice tries to pull you back into comfort, remember, it's not warning you of danger. It's signaling transformation. And transformation always begins where resistance begins to shout. That's where you push. That's where you grow. That's where you win. Chapter 5. Rebuilding Self-Trust. There's a quiet kind of pain no one talks about. It's not heartbreak. It's not failure. It's the ache that comes from not trusting yourself anymore. You say you'll wake up early, but you don't. You promise to start the project, but you stall. You swear this time will be different, but somehow it isn't. After enough broken promises, something inside you cracks. You stop believing your own words. You stop expecting anything from yourself at all. And that, more than laziness or fear, is what keeps you stuck. Not the inability to act, but the belief that your actions no longer matter. The collapse of integrity, self-trust, isn't built on success. It's built on consistency. And every time you abandon a promise to yourself, your integrity weakens a little. It's not just the habit you lose, it's your credibility with your own mind. Your subconscious keeps score. It remembers every tomorrow that never came. Until one day, when you say, "I'll do it," a voice in the back of your head whispers, "No, you won't." That voice is not cruel. It's accurate. It's reporting history. But here's the good news. You can rewrite that history, one small victory at a time. The myth of the grand restart. When people finally get tired of their patterns, they often go big. They wake up one morning and say, "This time I'm changing everything." They overhaul their diet, their schedule, their habits, their mindset. And within a week, they collapse under the weight of expectation. The problem isn't lack of willpower. It's that rebuilding trust doesn't happen in revolutions. It happens in repairs. You don't need to prove you can change your whole life. You need to prove you can keep one small promise. The 24-hour contract. Forget the idea of lifelong resolutions. They're too heavy, too abstract. Instead, make a 24-hour contract with yourself. Just for today, you'll follow through. You'll do the thing you said you'd do, no matter how small. And when you keep that promise, your brain takes note. We said we'd do it, and we did. It doesn't care how impressive the action is. It only registers the integrity. That's how self-trust rebuilds, not through intensity, but through honesty. Tiny promises, big shifts. Start with what you can actually control. Don't commit to running 5 kilometers. Commit to putting on your shoes. Don't vow to read a book a week. Commit to opening one page. Don't swear to transform overnight. Commit to showing up once, today. When you follow through on small promises, your brain relearns something powerful. My word means something. And once you believe that again, momentum becomes natural. Because self-trust is the root of discipline, you don't need motivation when you believe yourself. The gentle reset. Beating yourself up doesn't rebuild trust. It deepens the damage. You cannot shame yourself into consistency. You can only earn it through compassion and evidence. Instead of saying, "I always fail," say, "I'm learning to keep promises again." That simple shift changes everything. It turns failure into feedback. It replaces guilt with direction. Because guilt looks backward. Integrity looks forward. The mirror test. Stand in front of a mirror and ask yourself, "Do I trust me?" It's a confronting question, but an honest one. If the answer is no, that's not failure. That's awareness. You can't rebuild what you won't admit is broken. Then ask, what would it take for me to start trusting myself again? Usually, the answer isn't grand. It's something like, keep one small promise today. That's where the healing begins. The momentum of proof. As you rebuild, each kept promise becomes evidence. Evidence that you're reliable. Evidence that change is real. Evidence that you are, once again, someone who follows through. And that evidence rewires your self-image. Soon, when you say, "I'll do it," you'll hear a different voice inside you. Not doubt, but quiet confidence. Yes, I will. That's when you'll know you've crossed the line from forcing discipline to becoming it. Reflection. Self-trust isn't about perfection. It's about restoration. You can't change your past, but you can repair your reputation with yourself. You can make your word mean something again. Because when you trust yourself, everything else follows. Confidence, consistency, calm. And once that trust is rebuilt, laziness doesn't stand a chance. Because you'll no longer believe the lies that keep you still. You'll know, deep down, that when you say, "I'll do it," it's already as good as done. Chapter 6. The discipline loop. Discipline. It's a word that makes most people flinch. It sounds harsh, like control, sacrifice, pressure. But real discipline isn't about punishment. It's about freedom. The freedom to choose action over impulse. The freedom to trust yourself. The freedom to live a life built on intention, not reaction. And the secret to that freedom lies in something simple. Not willpower, not motivation, but a loop. A discipline loop, the loop of laziness. To understand discipline, you first need to understand its opposite. Laziness follows its own loop. 1. You avoid action because it feels uncomfortable. 2. Avoidance gives temporary relief. 3. That relief teaches your brain that avoidance works. 4. Next time, the resistance grows stronger. It's a self-reinforcing cycle. The more you avoid, the more you want to avoid. The more you give in, the more your brain rewards it. You're not weak. You're simply trapped in a feedback loop that feeds itself. To escape it, you don't need to destroy laziness. You need to interrupt it. The science of momentum. Every behavior you repeat teaches your brain what to expect next. When you act, even in a small way, you trigger dopamine, which gives you a sense of satisfaction. That feeling becomes a mental reward. If you repeat that behavior consistently, your brain begins to anticipate the reward before you act. That's how habits are born, not through effort, but through association. In other words, you don't rise to the level of motivation. You fall to the level of repetition. Discipline is not about forcing effort. It's about designing a loop that makes effort easier over time. The anatomy of the discipline loop. Every lasting habit follows 3 simple steps. 1. Cue. Something triggers the behavior. 2. Action. You follow through, even briefly. 3. Reward. You feel a sense of completion. Most people fail because they only focus on step 2. They push themselves to act, but ignore the power of triggers and rewards. But true discipline is built like a circuit. Each step fuels the next. Cue, action, reward, repeat. Do that enough times, and the loop becomes self-sustaining. Step 1. Create a cue. Cues are reminders. Environmental or emotional signals that tell your brain, it's time to begin. They can be physical, like placing your running shoes by the bed, visual, like a sticky note on your mirror, or emotional, like the feeling of morning silence before the world wakes up. When you control your cues, you control your behavior. Instead of relying on memory or motivation, You let your environment do the heavy lifting. Don't try to be stronger. Make it harder to fail. Step 2. Simplify the action. The action doesn't need to be heroic. It just needs to begin. The smaller the action, the easier it is to override resistance. That's why the first 2 minutes are everything. If you can just start, write one line, do one push-up, open the book, you've already won the hardest battle. Discipline isn't about intensity. It's about accessibility. Lower the barrier to entry until doing the work feels easier than avoiding it. Step 3. Reinforce the reward. Here's the part most people miss. When you finish a task, even a tiny one, your brain releases dopamine. That's the biological yes signal that makes habits stick. So instead of jumping straight to the next task, pause. Acknowledge the win. Say, I did what I said I would. That pause, that micro-celebration, tells your brain, this behavior feels good. Let's do it again. That's how you build momentum, not through guilt, but through reward. From pressure to rhythm. When the loop is new, it feels forced. You'll need reminders, discipline, conscious effort. But over time, something shifts. Your brain begins to crave the feeling of completion. You start looking forward to the satisfaction of follow-through. What once felt like pressure becomes rhythm. What once required effort becomes identity. And that's when discipline transforms from something you do into something you are. The identity shift. You can't build discipline on the identity of a lazy person trying to be better. That frame keeps you trapped in the past. You must shift to a new story. I'm someone who shows up. It doesn't matter how long you've struggled or how inconsistent you've been. The moment you act differently, your identity starts to change. Each repetition is a vote, not just for the habit, but for the person you're becoming. Discipline at its core is identity in motion, the discipline dividend. Here's the beautiful paradox. The more disciplined you become, the less effort discipline requires. When your habits carry their own momentum, you don't need constant motivation. You just follow the loop. And soon, that loop gives you something deeper than productivity. It gives you peace. You stop fighting yourself. You stop negotiating with laziness. You simply move, naturally, effortlessly, powerfully. Because this is who you are now. Reflection. Discipline isn't punishment. It's the ultimate form of self-respect. It's saying, I value my potential enough to act on it. And when you understand the loop, cue, action, reward, repeat, you stop forcing yourself and start designing yourself. That's the real secret. Discipline doesn't trap you. It frees you from chaos, from doubt, from someday. So build your loop, live inside it, and let it carry you from who you were to who you were meant to become. Chapter 7. Mastering focus in the age of distraction. There was a time when silence was normal, when a walk meant walking, when a meal meant eating, when waiting in line meant simply waiting. Now every spare second is filled. You reach for your phone before your mind even asks for it. You scroll, swipe, refresh, not out of curiosity, but out of habit. And in this quiet war for your attention, you are losing, one notification at a time. The erosion of attention. Your focus used to be whole. Now it's shattered, scattered across dozens of apps, feeds, and endless pings. Each distraction steals just a few seconds. But multiplied by hundreds of interruptions a day, it becomes hours, even years, of stolen life. And the cruelest part? You don't even realize it's happening. Because distraction doesn't feel dangerous. It feels harmless, even pleasant. But deep down, something inside you knows you're no longer in control. The currency of the modern world. In this age, your attention is the product. Every app, every video, every ad is designed to hijack the most precious thing you have, your focus. You think you're the customer, but online, you're the commodity. Your distraction feeds the machine, and every time you give in, you're teaching your brain that focus is optional. The attention muscle focus isn't a gift, it's a muscle, and like any muscle, it weakens when neglected. The more you multitask, the less your brain learns to go deep. You become excellent at switching, but terrible at staying. You read without remembering, work without finishing, listen without hearing, and you wonder why nothing feels satisfying anymore. The myth of multitasking. You tell yourself you're being efficient, juggling messages, meetings, and media at once. But the truth is, your brain can't multitask. It can only switch rapidly, burning energy with each switch. Every time you jump between tasks, your focus bleeds. And when you do that hundreds of times a day, your mental energy evaporates. By the end of the day, you're not tired from work. You're tired from fragmentation. The high cost of constant input. You crave stimulation because silence has become uncomfortable. Moments of stillness feel empty, almost threatening. But silence is not the enemy. It's the soil where clarity grows. When your brain is constantly fed noise, it forgets how to generate thought. You lose the ability to imagine, to reflect, to create. Your creativity dies not from lack of talent, but from lack of quiet. Reclaiming your attention. To master focus in the modern world, you must do something radical. Choose boredom. Let yourself feel the restlessness. Don't reach for the phone when you wait in line. Don't fill every silence with sound. At first, your mind will panic. It will beg for stimulation. That's withdrawal, not from boredom, but from addiction. If you can endure that discomfort, your focus will begin to return. You'll feel your thoughts lengthen again. You'll hear yourself think again. The power of single tasking. Deep work is the antidote to distraction. It's not about working longer, it's about working fully. Choose one task. Set a timer. Silence everything else. For that time, give your full attention. No tabs, no pings, no escape. At first, it will feel impossible. Your fingers will twitch. Your mind will wander. But stay with it. Because the moment you train your mind to stay, truly stay, you'll experience something you've forgotten. Flow. That quiet hum of total absorption. The peace of being fully present. The joy of effort without noise. That's where your potential lives. The focus ritual. To protect your focus, you need rituals, anchors that signal your brain. Now, we go deep. Try this. 1. Clear your space. Remove clutter, close tabs, silence notifications. 2. Set an intention. Write down one thing you'll finish before you stop. 3. Create a start ritual. A specific song, a breath, a sip of coffee, the cue that tells your brain to enter work mode. 4. Protect the zone. No checking messages, no switching. Every interruption resets your depth clock. Focus isn't about forcing, it's about framing. You build the conditions, and your mind follows. Digital discipline technology isn't the villain. Unawareness is. Your phone can serve you or enslave you. The difference is intention. Use your tools deliberately. Schedule your distractions. Check messages consciously, not reflexively. Don't eliminate pleasure. Eliminate mindlessness. The goal isn't to reject the modern world. It's to reclaim your sovereignty within it. The gift of presence. When you master focus, you don't just get more done. You get more life back. You start hearing conversations again. You taste your food. You notice the sky. You become anchored in the moment instead of drifting through it. And ironically, the more present you become, the more powerful your actions get. Because attention is energy, and when you stop scattering it, it becomes unstoppable. Reflection. Focus is not about blocking the world. It's about choosing what deserves your mind. In an age where distraction is default, focus is rebellion. It's how you take your power back. So guard your attention like treasure, because it is. And when you give it fully to your work, your craft, your loved ones, you'll realize the truth. The opposite of laziness isn't effort, it's presence. Chapter 8. The Power of Small Wins. We love big goals. We love the drama of transformation, the new chapter, the fresh start, the this time I'll change everything. But real change doesn't look dramatic. It looks ordinary. It looks like one small, repeated act, done even when no one is watching. Because the truth is, big change is just small change done consistently. The myth of the giant leap. We romanticize turning points, the single decision that changes everything. But that moment isn't where transformation happens. Change begins long before that, in the 1,000 quiet choices that nobody notices. The moments you don't skip the workout, the nights you write one more paragraph, the mornings you wake up 5 minutes earlier. Each one seems insignificant, but stacked together, they rewrite your destiny. It's not the leap that changes your life, it's the landing and the steps that brought you there. The compound effect of effort. Every small win compounds like interest. The first time it feels like nothing happens. The second time, still nothing. But then, slowly, invisibly, momentum builds. Consistency compounds confidence. Confidence fuels more action. And action creates transformation. You may not notice it day by day, but one day you'll look back and realize, this is working. That realization, that quiet moment of recognition, is the reward of small wins. The brain's reward system. Your brain loves completion. Every time you finish even a tiny task, it releases dopamine, a small shot of satisfaction that says, keep going. That's why small wins matter so much. They teach your brain that progress feels good. They turn effort into pleasure instead of punishment. Big goals, on the other hand, often do the opposite. They feel overwhelming, distant, abstract, heavy. They create pressure, not momentum. So you freeze. You delay. You say, I'll start when I have more time. But when you break that mountain into stones and move just one stone each day, you create the chemistry of progress. The 1% rule. If you improve by just 1% every day, you won't notice much at first. But over a year, that's not 365% better. It's 37 times better. That's the power of compounding. You don't have to be extraordinary today. You just have to be slightly better than yesterday. because the direction of your improvement matters infinitely more than the speed. The hidden confidence of small wins. When you keep small promises, you rebuild trust with yourself. When you follow through daily, you prove that discipline is not beyond you. It's within you. And every time you win a small battle, you reinforce the story that says, I can do this. That's what confidence truly is. Not arrogance, not perfection, but evidence. Each win becomes proof that your effort works, and soon that proof turns into belief. Belief that you can change. Belief that you are changing. When progress feels invisible, some days it feels like you're getting nowhere. You show up, you try, you repeat, and still you don't see results. But that's not failure. That's compounding in silence. A seed doesn't show signs of life the day it's planted. It grows in darkness first, roots before branches. So when nothing seems to be working, keep going. Because invisible progress is still progress. Consistency doesn't shout. It whispers. Build systems, not goals. Goals are good for direction. Systems are what keep you moving. A goal says, I want to lose 10 kilograms. A system says, I'll walk for 20 minutes every morning. A goal says, I want to write a book. A system says, I'll write 300 words a day. A goal focuses on results. A system focuses on process, and process is what builds identity. Because once a habit becomes part of who you are, you no longer chase it. You live it. Celebrate the micro. Most people only celebrate big victories, but small wins are the ones that shape you. Every time you resist the urge to quit, celebrate. Every time you start, even when it's hard, celebrate. Every time you finish what you began, celebrate. Because celebration is not arrogance, it's reinforcement. It tells your brain, this is who we are now. And that simple recognition turns behavior into identity. The ripple effect. A small win rarely stays small. When you follow through on one habit, you create momentum that spills into other areas of your life. You start exercising, and suddenly you eat better. You start reading, and suddenly you think deeper. You start waking early, and suddenly your whole day feels different. That's the ripple effect. One small act, multiplied across time, changes everything. Reflection. Don't underestimate the small things. They're the quiet architects of your transformation. The discipline to show up, the patience to repeat, the faith to keep going. These are the real miracles. You don't need to climb the mountain today. Just take the next step. Because small wins, stacked daily, build unstoppable momentum. And one day, without realizing it, you'll look around and see that the life you once dreamed of is simply the life you live now. Chapter 9. The energy of purpose. There are days when your body feels fine, but your spirit is heavy. You're not sick. You're just empty. You do what you must. Answer the emails, attend the meetings, go through the motions. But everything feels flat, colorless, mechanical. You're not lazy. You're disconnected. Because effort without meaning drains you. But effort with purpose fuels you, the hidden link between laziness and meaning. People think laziness is a lack of effort. It's not. It's a lack of direction. When you don't know why you're doing something, your mind resists it. Not because it's hard, but because it feels hollow. You can push yourself for a while with guilt, but guilt burns out quickly. Purpose doesn't. Purpose is a renewable source of energy, the spark that never dies. Think about the moments in life when you felt truly alive, when you were so engaged that time disappeared. Maybe it was creating something, helping someone, learning, building, exploring. Whatever it was, you weren't motivated by reward or recognition. You were driven by meaning. That's purpose. The invisible spark that turns discipline into devotion. The reason behind the reason. When you connect to it, you stop asking, "How do I stay motivated?" and start asking, "How can I serve what matters most?" The vacuum of just getting by. Modern life praises busyness, but punishes purpose. We fill our days with productivity, but not progress. We chase efficiency, but lose direction. We confuse movement with meaning. And slowly, without noticing, we trade purpose for routine. The result? We become professionally active and personally asleep. That's why so many people feel exhausted even when they've done everything right. Because the body can run on caffeine, but the soul runs on purpose. The question that changes everything. When you feel lazy, lost, or unmotivated, ask yourself one simple question. What for? Not what do I need to do? Not how can I force myself to do it? But what for? If the answer doesn't stir something inside you, you're chasing the wrong goal. Purpose isn't always grand. It doesn't have to save the world. It just has to matter to you. Even small tasks gain power when connected to a reason. You're not cleaning the room. You're creating peace. You're not working late. You're building something that gives your family stability. You're not exercising. You're teaching your body self-respect. When what connects to why, resistance loses its grip. Purpose gives power to discipline. Discipline without purpose feels like duty. Discipline with purpose feels like devotion. One drains you, the other sustains you. When you act from purpose, you don't need to convince yourself to keep going. You want to. Purpose turns habits into rituals. The difference between forcing yourself and fueling yourself. The layers of purpose. There are 3 levels of purpose, each one deeper than the last. 1, the task level. What am I doing? Example, writing an article, studying, exercising. 2, the goal level. What will this achieve? Example, building skill, earning stability, improving health. 3, the meaning level. Why does this matter to who I am? Example, expressing truth, fulfilling potential, living aligned with values. Most people live stuck at level 1. They know what they do, but not why it matters. The deeper you go, the easier it is to sustain effort, because meaning multiplies energy. When purpose feels lost, everyone loses their why sometimes. The spark fades, the path blurs, and you wonder, what's the point? But purpose isn't found once. It's remembered daily. It hides in reflection, silence, stillness. It grows when you slow down enough to ask deeper questions. Purpose doesn't shout. It whispers. You'll hear it when the noise quiets. When you stop chasing everyone else's definition of success long enough to listen to your own. Aligning purpose and action. Once you know your why, your actions must align, or friction will return. If your purpose is creativity, but you spend all day in distraction, you'll feel tension. If your purpose is contribution, but you live in isolation, you'll feel emptiness. Your mind and body crave alignment. When your daily actions reflect your inner purpose, peace returns. Purpose as fuel, not pressure. Purpose shouldn't crush you with expectations. It should light you. You don't have to change the world. You just have to show up for your part of it. Honestly, fully, with heart. Your purpose may evolve over time. That's okay. Growth doesn't erase meaning. It expands it. Each season of your life will ask a new question. Your job is to stay curious enough to answer. Reflection. Laziness fades when purpose takes its place. Because when you know why you're doing something, you no longer need to push yourself. You're pulled forward. Your days stop being a list of tasks. They become expressions of meaning, and that's when energy returns, not from caffeine or fear or deadlines, but from the deep, quiet power of knowing you're moving in the right direction. Purpose doesn't make life easier. It makes life worth it. Chapter 10. The Art of Showing Up. There's a moment every morning when the war begins. It's not dramatic. It's quiet. The alarm rings. You open your eyes, and the first thought arrives, not today. That tiny hesitation, that whisper of resistance, decides the day. Most people lose that battle before they even leave the bed. Not because they're lazy, but because they've forgotten the single greatest skill in life. The art of showing up. The myth of the perfect day. We all imagine the perfect day, when we'll wake up early, feel inspired, work efficiently, and end proud. But those days are rare. Most days are ordinary. You'll feel tired, distracted, uninspired. Your mind will make excuses. Your emotions will resist. If you only show up when you feel ready, you'll miss 90% of your life. Because the secret is this: consistency beats intensity. Showing up on imperfect days counts more than showing up on perfect ones. The beauty of imperfect action. You don't need to do it perfectly. You just need to do it today. Write a bad page. Do a short workout. Make one phone call. Learn one paragraph. Perfection is overrated. Momentum is priceless. Because every time you show up, even halfway, you're reinforcing the identity of someone who doesn't quit. And that identity, over time, will change your life more than any burst of motivation ever could. The law of minimum effort. You don't need to give 100% every day. No one can. But you can give something every day, even 30%, even 10%, even 1%. Because small efforts, repeated daily, compound faster than big efforts done occasionally. It's not about doing your best. It's about doing something when you don't feel like it. That's how you build unshakable discipline, not through power, but through persistence. The invisible wins. Most of your progress won't be visible. You'll show up, do the work, and see nothing change. You'll wonder if it's worth it. But what's growing isn't just your results. It's your character. Each time you show up despite fatigue, doubt, or distraction, you're training your mind to obey commitment instead of emotion. That's what separates professionals from amateurs. The amateur works when it's easy. The professional works until it becomes easy. The threshold of resistance. The hardest part of any task is the first 5 minutes. Your brain screams louder then, because it knows that once you start, it loses. So make a deal with yourself. I'll just start for 5 minutes. That's it. Once you begin, resistance weakens. Your brain recalibrates. Momentum takes over. And what once felt impossible suddenly feels doable. You don't need to slay the dragon. Just step into the arena. The psychology of presence. Showing up doesn't just build discipline, it builds trust. Every day you appear, tired, imperfect, distracted but present, you prove something powerful. I can count on me. That's the foundation of confidence. Not success, not applause, presence. Because showing up is the opposite of self-betrayal. It's an act of self-respect. The ritual of return. You will fail. You will skip days. You will lose rhythm. That's part of the process. But the mistake most people make is turning one missed day into a spiral of guilt. They think, I failed. What's the point? And so they stop. But discipline isn't about never falling. It's about returning faster each time you do. Forgive quickly, restart simply, pick up where you left off. No drama, no self-blame. You don't need to make up for lost time. You just need to come back. The compound identity. When you show up every day, even imperfectly, something shifts inside you. At first, it feels forced. Then it becomes normal. Eventually, it becomes you. You stop thinking, I have to do this, and start thinking, this is what I do. That's how habits transform into identity. And identity, once solidified, doesn't fade easily. The grace of small faith. Some days you'll show up and feel nothing. No spark, no pride, no progress. But showing up is an act of faith. Faith that small things matter. Faith that consistency compounds. Faith that the version of you you're building is worth it. You don't need to believe in yourself all the time. You just need to believe in the process. Reflection. You can't control the weather of your mood, but you can choose to show up, rain or shine. You can't force perfect conditions, but you can take one small, imperfect step forward. Because success isn't built in the days you feel strong. It's built in the days you show up weak and do it anyway. And when you look back, years from now, you'll realize something beautiful. You didn't just change your habits. You changed your nature. You became someone who shows up. And that, more than anything, is the art of living. Chapter 11. The momentum mindset. Momentum. It's the invisible force that turns effort into ease. The quiet rhythm that makes hard things feel lighter and discipline feel natural. When you have momentum, you don't have to fight yourself anymore. You simply move, forward, fluid, focused. But momentum isn't magic. It's engineered. And once you understand how it works, you'll never let yourself lose it again. The physics of progress. In physics, an object in motion stays in motion, unless acted upon by resistance. The same is true for you. Every time you take action, no matter how small, you build speed. Every time you hesitate, delay, or overthink, you add friction. The longer you stay still, the heavier starting feels. But once you're in motion, movement becomes self-sustaining. That's the essence of momentum. You stop pushing against yourself and start being carried by your own energy. The fragile beginning. Momentum is fragile at first, like a spark in the wind. The first few days of any change are the hardest. You have to fight inertia, doubt, fatigue, and the weight of old habits. That's why so many people give up before the loop can form. They mistake the struggle of starting for the struggle of staying. But those early days aren't proof that you're weak. They're the price of ignition. You can't skip that phase. You can only survive it and build speed through repetition. Once the wheels turn, every rotation gets easier. The compounding effect momentum doesn't grow linearly. It grows exponentially. Each small win builds on the last. Each bit of progress creates confidence, and confidence amplifies action. You don't need massive leaps. You just need consecutive steps in the same direction. Because momentum rewards continuity, not intensity. You don't need to sprint. You just need to keep walking. Over time, those steady steps become unstoppable force. The energy cycle. When you move, you generate energy. When you stay still, you drain it. It sounds backward, but it's true. The more you act, the more energized you feel. The more you wait, the more tired you become. That's why laziness feeds itself. You rest to feel better. But the more you rest, the heavier you feel. The only cure is motion. Action is the charger your brain forgot it had. When you're tired, don't ask, "How can I rest more?" Ask, "What small action could restart my energy?" Because sometimes the fastest way to rest your mind is to move your body and honor your purpose. Momentum loves consistency. Momentum doesn't care how you feel. It only cares that you show up. You can have off days, you can have slow days, you can even have bad days. But the rule is simple. Never miss twice. Miss once, you're human. Miss twice, you're building a new pattern. Consistency protects your momentum like armor. Even the smallest action keeps the engine alive. The momentum killers. If momentum is your ally, then distraction, perfectionism, and guilt are your enemies. Distraction scatters your focus before it can build speed. Perfectionism makes you stop to polish what isn't finished. Guilt makes you dwell on yesterday instead of moving today. To protect your flow, treat each moment as a reset button. Forget the last mistake. Ignore the future noise. Just do the next right thing now. Momentum is not about managing everything. It's about staying in motion through anything. The rhythm of progress. Momentum has rhythm, the push and pull between effort and ease. You can't stay in peak mode forever. You need cycles, work, rest, reflect, repeat. Push when you have energy. Recover when you don't. Return as soon as possible. That rhythm is what keeps momentum sustainable. Not burnout, not chaos, but flow. True momentum doesn't rush. It flows with purpose. From force to flow. In the beginning, discipline feels like pushing. You drag yourself forward with effort and willpower. But once momentum builds, something shifts. The push becomes a pull. You no longer have to force discipline, you follow it. That's when the process becomes almost spiritual. The struggle fades. The resistance quiets. You move because it feels natural. You show up because it feels right. That's when laziness dies quietly. Not from punishment, but from irrelevance. The compound identity. Each day you maintain momentum. You strengthen a new identity, not someone who tries, but someone who moves. And that identity starts to bleed into everything. You think clearer. You decide faster. You live lighter. Momentum doesn't just change how you act. It changes how you see yourself. Reflection. Momentum isn't magic. It's motion protected from interruption. It's what happens when you stop restarting and start continuing. The moment you realize that movement creates energy, you'll never again wait to feel ready. You'll know the truth. You don't chase momentum. You create it. You don't protect it with perfection. You protect it with persistence. Because the goal isn't to move fast. It's to never stop moving. Keep going. Keep showing up. keep building speed. And one day, you'll wake up to find that effort feels like ease, and motion feels like peace. That's when you've mastered the momentum mindset. Chapter 12. Becoming Unstoppable. At the beginning of this journey, you thought the enemy was laziness. You thought the problem was your lack of motivation, your bad habits, your procrastination. But now you see the truth. Laziness was never the real enemy. It was the symptom, a whisper from your deeper self saying, "You've forgotten who you are." The real battle. The war was never between you and work. It was between you and fear, fear of discomfort, fear of failure, fear of beginning, fear of your own power. Every time you hesitated, it wasn't weakness. It was protection. Your mind was trying to keep you safe, safe from uncertainty, from embarrassment, from pain. But safety has a price, aliveness. When you protect yourself too much, you stop living. You trade potential for comfort. You trade movement for stillness. You trade growth for security. And you call it laziness. The moment you decide. Every story of transformation begins with a decision, a quiet one, invisible to others, but earth-shaking to the soul. It's the moment you stop saying, "I wish," and start saying, "I will." It's the moment you realize no one is coming to save you. That motivation will not fall from the sky. That the perfect time doesn't exist. It's the moment you stand up. Not because it's easy, but because you're tired of being someone who almost tried. That's the day you stop being lazy. Not because you did something huge, but because you finally took ownership of your life. The power of alignment. When your purpose is clear, your focus sharp, your habits consistent, and your trust in yourself rebuilt, something shifts. You stop dragging yourself through each day. You start flowing with direction. Action becomes natural. Discipline becomes peace. Effort becomes joy. That's alignment. When what you think, feel, and do all move in the same direction. And once you reach that state, you become unstoppable. The quiet confidence. Being unstoppable isn't about being perfect or fearless. It's about quiet confidence. The kind that doesn't need to prove itself. You don't rush anymore. You don't beg for motivation. You simply act. You trust the process. You trust yourself. There's no more internal war, just momentum guided by meaning. That's what real strength looks like. Calm, steady, unshakable. How unstoppable people think. Unstoppable people aren't superhuman. They just understand one truth. Progress is built on motion, not miracles. They don't wait for energy. They create it. They don't chase motivation. They act without it. They don't need perfect conditions. They move anyway. They treat every small step as sacred. They honor the process more than the outcome. And they see obstacles not as punishment, but as proof they're on the right path. Because resistance is a compass. It always points toward growth. From struggle to flow, you spent years fighting your own nature, forcing, pushing, shaming yourself to change. But what if change was never about force? What if it was about returning to the part of you that wants to move, grow, create, become? You were never broken. You were just blocked. And now, the block is gone. Laziness fades not because you killed it, but because you outgrew it. You no longer need avoidance to protect yourself. You've learned how to face life head-on, gently and powerfully. The ripple effect. When you rise, everything around you begins to rise too. Your discipline inspires others. Your energy influences environments. Your calm steadiness becomes permission for others to believe they can change too. Because transformation isn't contagious through words, it's contagious through presence. The world doesn't need another perfect person. It needs more awake ones. People who act from purpose, who live with clarity, who move with integrity. That's what being unstoppable truly means. Not dominating others, but elevating everyone around you. The infinite game. There is no finish line, no point where you arrive. The process is the destination. The habit is the victory. The growth is the goal. You'll fall again. You'll slow down again. But now, you'll know how to return, faster, stronger, wiser. You'll stop chasing balance and start embracing flow. Because life isn't about perfect control, it's about constant correction. The final shift, you've come full circle, from stuck to steady, from doubting to doing, from waiting to moving. You've learned that motivation is overrated, discipline is designed, and purpose is the ultimate energy. But the greatest lesson of all? You don't need to be extraordinary to be unstoppable. You just need to be consistent when others quit. Laziness ends the moment you stop identifying with it. You are not lazy. You are capable, creative, powerful, and alive. Every day you show up, you rewrite your story. Every small win becomes a brick in your foundation. Every act of courage becomes proof that you are changing. You don't need to rush anymore. You don't need to prove anything. Just keep moving forward. You've already won. Reflection. Unstoppable isn't something you become. It's something you remember. The part of you that always wanted to move, grow, live. When you stop fighting yourself, you don't need motivation. You become it. That's not the end of your story. It's the beginning of a new one. A life lived in motion, with meaning and without regret. You've stopped being lazy. You've started being you. Epilogue, the new beginning. The morning was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels full, not empty. Soft light spilled across the desk where a half-finished notebook lay open. Pages filled with messy notes, thoughts, and reminders of change. Ethan sat there, a cup of coffee growing cold beside him. And for the first time in a long time, he didn't feel behind. He didn't feel lost, he just felt present. He looked out the window, the same street, the same city, the same sky. But something was different. He was different. The weight had shifted. He realized that all those years of waiting for the perfect moment had been the heaviest thing he carried. The endless planning, doubting, delaying, they were all forms of fear dressed as preparation. But now he understood a truth that changed everything. You don't wait to feel ready. You become ready by doing. Every small action he had taken, every morning he got up, every decision to keep going when it didn't matter, had built something invisible inside him. Self-trust. And that trust was now unshakable. The real transformation change, he realized, had never been about becoming someone new. It was about remembering who he had always been. The person buried under years of hesitation, excuses, and fear of not being enough. He hadn't defeated laziness. He had simply stopped feeding it. He had chosen courage over comfort, and in doing so, he had found freedom. Because the opposite of laziness isn't productivity, it's aliveness. It's the feeling of being fully engaged in your own life again. The new rhythm. Ethan still had lazy days. He still had doubts. But now they no longer defined him. He had learned to see them as part of the rhythm, the ebb and flow of growth. Some days you move fast. Some days you move slow. But you never stop moving. He smiled to himself, writing 3 simple words in his notebook. Words that had carried him through every battle. Just show up. That was all it ever took. That was all it ever would. The gift of the journey. The journey hadn't made him perfect. It had made him aware. Aware of his choices, aware of his energy, aware of his power to create meaning out of ordinary days. And that awareness was the true gift. Because once you wake up to your potential, you can never go back to sleep. You start noticing beauty in effort, purpose in routine, and peace in progress. You realize that life isn't something to be endured. It's something to be participated in. A quiet promise. Before leaving his desk, Ethan closed his notebook gently and whispered a promise. Not to the world, but to himself. I will keep moving, even when I don't feel like it. Even when no one notices. Even when it's hard. Because this life, this one life, is worth showing up for. And in that quiet moment, he understood something he never had before. He didn't need to conquer the mountain. He just needed to take one step, again and again and again, until the mountain moved beneath his feet. The invitation, and now it's your turn. You've read the words. You've felt the resistance. You've seen yourself in the reflection. And now, you stand at the same crossroad Ethan once did. You can go back to comfort, to waiting, to the illusion of someday. Or you can step forward into effort, into courage, into a life that feels alive. No one can choose for you. But here's the truth. The moment you begin, truly begin, the universe begins with you. Every ounce of energy you give to your growth comes back multiplied in ways you can't yet see. The new beginning. So take a deep breath, stand tall, and move, even if it's just 1 inch today. Because that's where freedom lives, in movement. That's where power begins, in presence. And that's where your new story starts. Right here, right now, not tomorrow, not someday, but today. Because the secret to stopping laziness isn't about fighting who you are. It's about remembering that you were never meant to stay still. Final reflection. Every morning is a blank page, every decision, a sentence, every habit, a paragraph, and your life, your beautiful, imperfect, unstoppable life, is the story you're writing one action at a time. So write it well. Live it fully. Move with grace. Show up. Always show up. Because that, my friend, is how you stop being lazy and start becoming alive.